We
Cool.
are.
All right. Well, welcome to the Leighton Inclusion Interview Show. The show is about recognizing the difference between kindness and cruelty, and we'll be talking about kindness, including ways artists and business people can use their talents to help others. I'd like to welcome Joan Hammel to the show. Hi, Joan. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And I want to tell you that in my eyes and my ears, I see you as a beautiful vocalist, an actress, and cheerleader who has sent the elevator down. You're a radio pro. What was the station that you were at in Chicago?
WKRS.
Yep. And you've sung and taught for a wide range of audiences, including regular shows in your community, as well as groups like the USO.
Yes.
So for you, inclusion includes work with Native American music plus a range of great causes, right?
Yes,
Why
absolutely.
why is that as opposed to just, hi, I'm Joan. Come to see my show.
Well, I think we are better for our differences. I think we are richer in our culture when we bring together people who are different than we are, both from a musical standpoint as well as an intellectual standpoint. I just think when we are multicultural, America truly is the melting pot. And I think it makes us more interesting.
Yeah, I like that you're using the word melting pot for America. And we need to shout that from our rooftops for sure. Big time.
Yeah, I grew up in a household where my parents played music, all kinds of music. And so that one time they would put on a classical album, and then they would put on banjo music, and then they would put on some indigenous Hawaiian music or flamenco from Spain. And so I grew up loving many, many different kinds of music. And I still do. I still really love all kinds from around the world in different genres. So,
I can hear that influence. I wrote down America and My Gentle Heart, and that's something that from New York. I'm based in the city when September 11th happened here,
yeah.
2020, 2001. I I just needed a lot of healing and comfort and to connect with people, and apparently it reached you all the way in Chicago.
Yeah, the America song, I was asked to sing on that. That was produced by a veteran, a US veteran named Dan Daley.
Oh,
And he wrote the lyrics. He's of Irish descent, and he rewrote the lyrics to "Oh Danny Boy" to America about those who were lost on September 11th, as well as those who were the first on the scene to help other people. And that song provided a lot of healing. I felt very honored to be the vocalist on it. And it's a part of the 9/11 Museum in New York. It's a part of um, the Flight 93 stuff in California. And the letters that we received from say the widow of the co-pilot of the plane that hit the North Tower, talking about how it helped them heal and how knowing that other people cared made such a huge difference to them.
I felt your singing on it. It struck a nerve. It was healing for me listening
Oh,
to it, and I know how much planning and preparation it takes to interpret a lyric like that. And
right.
I know how hard you worked on that. It hit
Well,
me
that's
very.
the best compliment. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you as well. uh, and the amount of work that you do in songs. I understand you won an Emmy award for "It's Fun to Be Fit" for WBBM Chicago,
Right.
CBS affiliate. I'm interested in music and fitness and how you got involved with that, and what you learned from working on that.
That was from when I went to school for television production. And
Ah,
so, luckily I landed a job at WBBM TV in Chicago, which is the CBS affiliate, and was working there. And then they were doing a television special at the station. And so one of the people who was working on that show came over and said, "Do you want to work on it with us?" And of course. So yeah, so the point of that production was helping students to understand that fitness can be fun. It was a Disney magnet school, is a Disney magnet school in Chicago. And so they look very creatively at how to educate children. And one of them is to use music to get the body going. We can't, some songs, we all have those songs that you can't sit still, right?
right.
And so their philosophy was to have kids find things that they love and to get moving. And especially in times when there's a lot of sitting, there's a lot of
Mhm.
sitting at school, there's video games, kids maybe aren't going outside as much. And so to just take some time and with your friends, right, to make
Yeah,
it a group activity.
absolutely. Did that spill over into your life? Did you grow from that?
I think the thing that I grew the most with is realizing how important the voice was of children to other children. That, I mean, we all talk about peer pressure and that sort of a thing, but how inspiring kids can be to other kids.
Yeah, they can be. It can work both ways.
Right. They don't
Sure.
really want to hear from us grown-up people all the time, but to see their friends doing it and to have it be contagious, that's and those kids were so talented, the kids at the Disney Magnet School, those kids are, you know, so much braver than I was at that age. They were just, out there and, putting themselves in front of their peers and feeling confident and that was great.
What work did you do at the news station? I'm asking because of the movie that you were also in, where you played a newswoman.
Ah, yes. Yes. That
Very.
was Groundhog Day. Yes, I played television reporter number one in Groundhog Day. That was such a great opportunity. That's Andy McDowell there on the left, and Bill Murray right smack behind you, and then drinking the drink, which you can't see, but that's Chris Elliott all the way to the left too. You just see his shoulder, but yeah, I worked on that from like early January into April. And even though I'm barely in it, I have such fantastic memories. Bill Murray was a wonderful, wonderful person to work with.
You've 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 worked with some interesting personalities in the news, Johnny Mathis.
Yes.
What's that about? I'm going to ask you questions about him.
So Johnny Mathis, I had a cousin who adored him. And so I grew up from a very young age hearing his music played in the house. And she just was in love with him. And so his music was a part of my life, right? From a very young age. And then along the way, because I'm a member of the Grammy Awards organization, I'm a voting member. When we hear music that we really love, we are a part of the team that puts in names or songs or whatever for consideration. And Johnny had a recording that I absolutely loved, a Christmas album that he had come out with. And so I contacted his producer and said I would like to nominate Johnny for this. And so that's how it got connected. And then the producer, got me connected with his people, and then we worked together as a team to take care of all of the nomination process, which is involved. And then he started inviting me to shows, and he is so you can see he's just an incredibly warm person. He just said such nice things to me, and he's been having a high level of vocals for decade after decade after decade. Sometimes you'll hear people and they don't sound so great anymore. But
No.
he always top of his game. Amazing vocals.
70 years on stage. Since the birth of rock and roll, he's been performing and he's retiring now.
Right.
And I actually had sent about 2022. I heard some on stage recordings from that the late 2020s, and
Yeah.
I just emailed it to friends. One of them was insulted. He was a great singer that was insulted. Oh well, but everybody else was blown away by it
Why were they insulted?
because he's a competitive singer.
Oh. Yeah, no, Johnny, he continued to work out. He had a trainer right up until COVID. He had a trainer come a couple times a week, and you can see in this picture that he is fit.
Yeah.
He had a chance to be in the Olympics at one point. He was an incredible athlete when he was younger, and it stayed with him. And so, um, his whole life he has been physically fit. He did have time that he was in rehab. He talks about, some hard times that a lot of performers have, when the careers go up and down. Um,
Hmm.
but he's been healthy and good for a long time. So,
That's part of your mantra is also going outdoors and finding the joy, which is something that during and during COVID, I really got more and more involved with going out on my own because during that time in 2021, I got sick. I had endometrial cancer,
oh my,
and yeah, and we caught it early. I've always been a believer in going to the doctor and going, "Hey, something's wrong here," that type of thing.
yeah,
And I think going out and being in touch with the body and exercising, whatever you look like, because you don't always look as fit. It's harder for girls to look as fit as guys like Johnny,
yeah,
but it one of the great things about exercising and going outdoors and connecting with nature is you get more in touch with yourself. So I think
yeah.
that probably is what saved my life. It's just being
Wow,
connected with outdoors.
yeah,
And recovery, it took years before I got back to uh feeling stronger, but it's one foot after another.
did you say that that happened during COVID?
Yeah, I got in 2021, uh the end of December 2020. So yeah, coming out of that, I I got more into going out before the endometrial cancer. I love walking around and go hug. I've always loved hugging trees, so
Yeah.
I
Well,
do.
you certainly overcame a lot by not just everybody dealing with the COVID situation, but you also had your health stuff going on. That's amazing that you got through all of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, the amount of friends. It, I think I had over 10 friends that passed away from COVID, and I know
Wow.
people that know people. In New York City, you know a lot more people, but I also know people that survived it too.
Yeah.
You have a great quote. As long as you take care of the planet, we're always going to have creativity. And I heard that in your Big Blend radio interview from about 6 years ago.
Oh, yeah. That was that interview was after I had done the National Park Artist in Residency.
Mm,
And those folks are devoted to talking about the national parks. And to your point of being outside, I am an outside person. I just love to be outside, even if it means just, like now it's getting to be warmer in Chicago. Our spring is coming. Um, my garden, I love to get outside and garden, and my flowers are starting to poke up out of the ground. And so just to go sit outside is so good for us.
yeah.
To go for a walk, fantastic, or ride your bike or anything outside, I'm in.
Yeah, totally. And it spilled over into your music from nature walks and animal symphony.
Oh yeah, Animal Symphony. That's a really fun project. I worked on that with a longtime friend of mine, Kelly Beeman. He's a trombonist,
Mm,
and he's did Disney cruises and shows and things, and he lives in Nebraska now. And so we started writing for beginning bands. I have a son, and I sat through one too many terrible band concerts. uh, and I thought, maybe Kelly and I can create something that is easier for the kids to play and is really fun for the parents to experience. And so
Right.
that's where Animal Symphony came from.
Cool, cool. And you're still writing about nature walks, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The title Nature Walk is the song that came from the artist and residency from the National Park Service. And that was 6 weeks of enjoying our national parks
We need
and
that.
traveling the country and seeing places that I hadn't seen before. We live in such an incredibly beautiful country.
Yeah,
And so that was a real treat to go. And that's where I met my Native American collaborator, because several weeks of my residency, I lived on the Colville Indian Reservation.
oh wow.
Yeah. So that's where I met Faran Sohappy. I love his name, Faran Sohappy.
Karen, so happy.
Yeah. And so that's where we met. He was running the recording studio there on the Indian reservation. And so I was invited to go and record there. And he and I became friends. We talk pretty much every day. So
Nice. And
yeah.
you're doing something now new with him, no?
Yes, he is getting ready to record a new album. He just got some new equipment in the studio, and so I'm waiting for him to tell me what he would like me to do, and I'm happy to do whatever that is.
What's it like just traveling and going away from home, missing your bed, missing your pets, missing everything, and you're on the road and you're in different parks, or you're on a USO tour, or you're going to Cuba or the Caribbean to do concerts and you're not home.
Yeah. I love to travel. So for,
Okay.
so for me, a good road trip, sign me up. I'm ready to go. I really do like it because you get to see other people, other cultures, and hear other kinds of music. That's one of the things that I have really loved about traveling, is that we get to hear music that we don't really hear on the radio here
Right.
so much. And because I grew up listening to all kinds of different stuff, I really enjoy hearing musicians from other places.
You're like a cultural anthropologist.
Yes. That's a fun way to look at it. But yes, I'd love to, when I went to the Cannes Music Festival, Madame, okay,
Whoa.
that my favorite thing about that is all the musicians were finding each other and we were trading music.
Wow.
And I came home with music that I know I'll never hear any other way. The
Right.
music from Iceland is amazing, and I don't know how else you hear that. Even to go online, it's hard to find some of that. So, but to meet
Yeah.
face to face and be cheering each other on, that's great.
I have to look up the link, but there is a link that I periodically go to online where you can hear every radio station in the world. Uh,
Really?
yeah, but you have to use a map and you put your mouse, and I go down to, let's say, Cape Town or to France radio, and
Okay.
lately I've been listening to India radio. But even then, when you're listening to every radio station in the world, a lot of stations, including college radio, they're trying to imitate what's popular. So you don't always hear that. You
Yeah.
really do have to. In New York City, we're going out into the community. In Chicago, I I remember getting a media advisory that John Kalodner wanted to sign a prog rock band, but only from Chicago, not from Atlanta, not from any other part of the world. So there's so many holes that the gatekeepers
Yeah.
don't open. And
Yes.
what you're saying is so perfect.
Yeah.
Even at cons, you're discovering new music, and it may be some of the best in the country, but it's stuff that it's music that's been lifted up through that country's showbiz culture. And
Yeah.
so we may be missing something, like going to the where is the Colesville tribe?
The Colville Indian Reservation is in Washington State.
Okay.
It's right on the Columbia River,
Mm,
um, at the Grand Coulee Dam.
right.
And the Grand Coulee Dam is this monstrous big dam that helps create power for the Northwest. And
Yeah.
and so there are, I think, 11 or 12 tribes that live on the Colville Indian Reservation.
How wonderful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's the Northwest of our country is just so beautiful. And I love anything along the Columbia River. If you've never been, I hope someday you'll get a chance to go.
I have a feeling I will be, because I have so many friends in that neck of the woods.
Yeah,
And literally, they do call it the woods where they're
yeah,
at. And it's so close to, it's in the same, more or less, region as Oregon and
yeah,
redwoods in California. So, and even Utah,
yeah.
Idaho. So, yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. I hope you visit your friends there and take a walk outside. It's just breathtaking.
Well, what is your heritage, and what advice do you have for people that are interested in getting out of just who they are and exploring their roots? How do you make that first move?
How do you make the first move? That's a really good question. Um, Gosh, I would say maybe if you're watching this show, then you have access to the internet, and I would put in, go to a search engine and put in music from another country.
Mm,
Pick a country, you know. Each year for the holidays, we do a holiday meal here, and what we do is we pick a country
right,
and we make the food from there, and we learn about that place and listen to the music, and so it becomes a more personal way to understand someone from another place, because we all enjoy food, for the most part.
yeah,
um, it's sort of fun to create something that you're not going to. I live up in the north suburbs of Chicago, and we're diverse here, but we're not that diverse as far as, the almost 200 countries of the world, right?
right.
So, yeah, so we just try to learn about it. That's what I would say is spend a little time, maybe go to a restaurant that you have not had before. Go see a band live if you can now that COVID's over. Go see a live band and pick something that you've never seen before and just be open-minded.
Absolutely. I live in the Bronx. A lot of me hates to travel to New York City, but uh, I have to make a point of doing it every 6 weeks, every month.
Yeah.
More in the spring and summer and fall than during the winter, obviously. But it and I can make an excuse and say, "Hey, I'm going to go to Harlem. Not that far from me. I don't have to go to Midtown. I don't have to go to the folk scene in the Village. I can go see what's uptown and get check out some Afropop. And plus, we have concerts in Marcus Garvey Park, which is closer to uptown than downtown. And the Bronx has a lot of great places to see shows
When my
periodically.
son was young, I used to scour all of the library calendars because
Hmm.
the libraries in our community put on concerts all summer long and sometimes in the wintertime, and they're free. And they have every kind from Hawaiian music to, um, you talk about Afro-Cuban,
Yeah.
they try to bring in music that maybe is not the most famous people, but is culturally diverse. And
Mhm.
I used to take him to those concerts when he was little, and it was really great to go out with the community and sit in a park, usually outside, or if it had bad weather, yeah, they'd do it inside. But it was really great to go and see, people who were devoted folklorists or, indigenous music people close by.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely. Absolutely. And New York City Libraries has programs like that. Although we also have programs where it goes to the roots of punk rock and New York City classic uh, rock and roll music history here in
Yeah,
the city. So we're a little bit, and I have to say, I think New Yorkers are a little bit more spoiled with the amazing opportunities that we do have to check out culture. We have choices, dozens of choices daily, maybe
yeah.
hundreds.
And you have so many great colleges and universities too
Yeah,
that
we do.
offer different kinds of student recitals, particularly if people love classical music or jazz.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
The
Who
Manhattan School of Music, fantastic.
who needs to go see the Eagles when you have re, uh, traditional or historical music here? Oh, not that the Eagles aren't historical, you know. Well, speaking of Eagles, and I'm going to segue into birds.
Okay.
Uh, there's a TV show that I've been watching called The Residents, which is about a murder in the White House. And the investigator on the project is a bird lover. And she is a woman that everybody looked down on and scorned her because she spent some time reflecting, and part of her reflecting included watching the birds, but she solved the murder. And there's so many lessons about this TV series in general. One is the amount of people that look down on somebody that might seem a little bit quirky or reflective, and yet she's the one that came out with answers. Is there a story in your life where you surprised everyone, and how? How did that happen? Did you work at it or did it just unfold?
Hmm, a surprise. Um, I think that the surprises that mean the most are when you get someone's reaction to your work that's meaningful, right?
Mhm.
So, like I mentioned, the letter from the widow of the co-pilot of the plane, or when I first started, there was a little girl who came up and said, how much she enjoyed it, that kind of a thing. I think those are the surprises because I don't expect to have someone, you know, make a positive comment, but it certainly is lovely when someone connects with your work in some way.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, there were a couple of your songs, especially America, that I completely connected with in your music. And how you sing, how you interpret, how do you prepare when you have to perform? And I know you play out regularly.
Yeah, well, it's a day it's I sort of think of it like an athletic event. For many of us who are performers, it's a regular dedication to working out whatever if it's a physical instrument or your voice. It's a regular commitment to keeping it active. And I'm thinking, you're talking about a surprise. There was a surprise one time, speaking of America, I went to Florida on a vacation and down in the Keys, and I was there with a group of friends. And we went down for the sunset, and we invited some strangers over to come and sit with us. And we had like cheese and crackers and things. And didn't think anything of it and had a nice time. And then the next day I was getting up and I went to my car And one of the people we had invited over came up to me and he said, "I know who you are." And I said, "Well, I know who you are." And I said, "You joined us like that." And he said, "No, I know who you are. You're the singer of America." And
Wow.
he said, "I'm one of the fire chiefs from New York." And I know. And he said, "Your song made a difference to me and all of our," because the proceeds went to benefit the fire department and the police department. And so if you look right over here, he gave me a patch of that firehouse as a thank you gift.
Mm.
Um, so that was, I was just living my life, not thinking anything of it. And that was very meaningful and an amazing surprise.
It was a wonderful surprise. Yeah, you must have felt like magic from that.
Well, it
Blessed.
was just out of the blue, right?
Yeah.
So,
I looked at your bio and there were a couple of folks that you've worked with or knew that I have loved in different ways. One was Brandon Lee, who I had interviewed.
oh, wow.
And yeah, he was on the, this was when he was working on The Crow. And I, I laughed. I enjoyed him. He reminded me of all my friends from college that were also actors. And he
Yeah.
was young. He was still a young man. And when he passed away, eh, just the energy that I felt from losing him, I and I felt like I lost him because, like I say, sometimes a journalist does an interview and they feel like someone they know,
Yeah.
and I used my energy. I studied martial arts not because of his dad, because of him. Although later on,
Yeah.
obviously, I got into Bruce Lee. What's
Yeah.
your story with Brandon Lee?
Well, I was hired to come on. I was supposed to be a hostage on the film that was before The Crow, that was shot in Chicago. And
Mhm.
I was hired to come in and be a hostage on the L train of Chicago that he rescues.
Cool.
And so I came to the set and to your point, he was this very present, warm, his smile is something I will never forget. He just had this amazing glowing smile.
Yeah.
And and so the director and he were going back and forth on what they wanted to shoot. And I ended up sitting there the whole day on the set, just waiting. You know, that's just how film work is sometimes. And they were like, "Well, we don't know if we're going to shoot the scene, but stay and we're going to pay you." And they never did shoot it, but I got to see him work and I got to see them do the shooting. And he just, I don't know, he was a really incredibly special spirit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There definitely was a magic, and I think using the word present probably is a good description. And I don't remember the name of the movie, but I will look it up um, when when I post this interview. But I do know what film you're talking about. Um, Another person on your hangout list is Jimmy Dean, who I've never met, but I find him to be an amazing spoken word artist. And I also like the fact that he sent the elevator down repeatedly, not just famous people that he discovered, but also working folk artists, country artists from the
Yeah.
1950s and 60s. He did discover Patsy Cline and Roy Clark.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. I did not realize that he had discovered Roy Clark. That's incredible.
they
Yeah.
both came out of the Washington, D.C. market in the
Okay.
50s.
Well, he sure was a talented guy, wasn't he? He did so many things. He yes, absolutely a country music legend, but he also did acting.
Yeah,
And the reason I ended up connecting with him is he did a show called Big River. And so he came to Chicago. He had written this piece, and so I got to do a show with him here. And he just was the warmest, um, boy, when he looked you in the eye, he really looked you in the eye. And
Mm.
um, in fact, I knew you were going to mention him, and I thought I would share a little surprise with you because
Oh, oh,
we all go to the store and we see Jimmy Dean products still to this day,
right,
right?
right,
And I thought it would be kind of fun because when I met him, he was like, "Here's my card and my phone number. I want you to call me when you come to Texas," right? And
right.
so, I thought, how often do you get to see Jimmy Dean on the Jimmy Dean card, right?
Oh, wow.
And I've
Now,
kept it all these years because he was just uh, such a unique person and a good business person, right? He
mhm,
created this whole empire, and I don't know, he just left such a warm impression on me.
yeah,
Um, he just a Southern gentleman, charming and talented, very talented.
yeah.
Yeah.
Big River was a stage show?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm writing that down. Like I said, I'm researching him. At some point, I'm gonna find his widow and interview her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must. I must. I must. So, and when you guys made eye contact, was he really tall?
Well, the first time we were talking, he was sitting down.
Okay.
Um, but even with that, he just was, really looking at you. And um, sometimes when you meet people, they can't really be, they're not always so interested in chatting with you, you know.
Yeah,
But he had a real sincerity to him. Um, yeah.
I believe that. I want to ask you about the Steppenwolf Theater, which is epic. At one point, when I was a teenager, I wanted to be an actress, and everybody knew the Steppenwolf Theater.
Yes.
And you and other SAG after singers work with students for the Blind Services Association.
Yes, Steppenwolf has been very kind to give us some theater space there, and each year we have worked with students, they're high school age students, to
Mhm.
come in and spend the day. We do a camp day with them at Steppenwolf, and we do music with them, and we create beats, and we do storytelling, and we have a day of creativity, and it's challenging for us as performers because they're either totally blind or sight impaired in some way, and so it challenges us as well to communicate um, with students, and we just have the greatest time. We come out as performers so filled with joy and feel so rewarded to spend the day with the kids just having fun and you know, as a group. It came about because one of our SAG after members is associated with the kids. And so that's how we got connected.
How do what like what would an example of the work that you did with the kids be, and how would a student sustain the the work after, so that they can continue to grow after that one day of getting together?
Well, like one of the things we did is we built storytelling with them.
Mm.
So we'd have all the students sit in a circle, and then we would each have you contribute a sentence to a story.
Oh,
So I would start once upon a time, and then you would say, there were two giants walking through the forest, and then the next, and you continue to build the story as a group. So it becomes teamwork, it's creativity, it's improvisation, it's for some of the kids building confidence to speak up in a group setting, right?
oh yeah.
Whatever their age, but especially teenagers can feel very self-conscious. And so those skills transfer into back into the classroom. Yeah, I feel I can raise my hand and answer the question, right?
Sweet. Yeah, and that's really needed. And I think inclusion works on both levels. One where we have to, we, the people that feel excluded, probably have to do a little extra push, but also you as a teacher or leader or facilitator, you're bringing them into the picture. You're being aware of which students need the help.
And it's a safe space, right? We're celebrating you. So there's no wrong answer, you know. And many times we end up laughing together because someone will come up with some part of the sentence that, and the spaceship brought down the aliens, and then we all have a good laugh together, and it's fun.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. Well, aliens always bring a good laugh. So, so tell me, you're doing some more collaborations. You're working on some more projects. One is with, give me the name of that, Colville, or I'm
Faran Sohappy. Yeah, he's a Yakima tribal member. And so Farron and I I'm like I said, I'm waiting for him to give direction on what he would like help with. And
Mhm.
he's a NAMMY nominated artist, which is Native American Music Awards, and so he'll be creating something musical, and he'll be coming to Chicago. Let's see, in May at some point.
Right.
Um, so we will work on something together at that
Oh,
point.
that's good.
Yeah.
And then there's something that's also a local group out of Chicago, Dr. Watts and the
Yes, Dr.
Medicine Show.
Watts and the Medicine Show. He is my friend Jeffrey is Dr. Watts,
Mhm.
and he's been re-recording and remastering their classic music that they've had over the years here in Chicago. And so he asked me to pick a song to sing on. And so that single, Thinking of You, will be coming out, and it'll be on all the major platforms online. And yeah.
I'm friends with a few folks from Chicago radio. And also, I don't know him well, but there's Joel Hoekstra.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he would
Okay.
love this.
So are
I
you talking like Joel Hoekstra from the rock band, Joel Hoekstra?
Oh, or is it Dave Hoekstra?
Dave, I think it's Dave.
Ooh, Dave Hoekstra. Sorry,
Yeah.
Joe.
That's so I actually
Big
studied with
truck.
his dad when I was in college.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah,
Dave?
his dad was the choir director. Um, and so it's become a very small world. But Dr. Hoekstra, as we called him, um, yeah, he was. It's so interesting that his son went on to be a rock star because his dad was a very serious classical um, musician. He played the piano
Right.
at a high level, and so it's kind of funny.
Okay. So, who's the Chicago Music History Scholars? Is that Dave? Dave, not Joel.
I'm
Okay.
I don't
I have
know.
I will research this for you.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is going to help for sure. And it's all good. Is there anything you want to add? This has been really a wonderful conversation.
Oh, thanks. I was wondering if you could tell me how you got started doing this.
It was one foot after another. I think ever since I was a kid and listening to the radio and loving the spoken word, speaking voices, plus writing and like who wants to use me doing my writing or whatever. And I think radio and writing articles about bands were, were the two things that I started first in high school and college. And then I just did more and more professional work, and everything that I've done has been a learning experience. When I was working at a rock magazine, I learned how to license songs. And so that gave me the courage when I was managing artists, which I don't do anymore. I just have one artist that I'm managing, and then everything else is publicity and poetry and this. That's basically it's all come together
That's
and it's
awesome.
put me together. But as far as being eclectic and listening to music, I'm the same way. My parents were theater lovers, and I listen to folk music. My dad went to the Woody Guthrie Almanac House in New York City, and he would bring us. Pete Seeger was my first concert, and it continues to this day where I just keep listening, and I love rock and roll. So there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Any particular rock and roll bands that you love?
I would say it goes from oldies, 1950s oldies, all the way to country music. And I've been listening to a lot of Jimmy Dean spoken word as well as Tom T. Haw up through the 70s, whatever was popular. I believe it or not, a lot of the bands that I work with, Orleans and Grand Funk Railroad,
Oh,
they were
wow.
favorites when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And Buzz Scaggs was a favorite too. So I love that pop sound. And then in the 80s, I followed everybody else and loved everything from REO and Styx all the way to Blondie, rest in peace, Clem Burke, the drummer, to the Ramones and other New York bands. And I supported a lot of New York City bands in the 90s, like the Washington Squares. And
Oh, sure.
yeah, they were just great. And hair bands. I love the Warrants and Great Whites back in the 1990s, and Bon Jovi's and Blind Melon. That was a favorite band, in Pearl Jam. So I've been all around the bus. And then in the 21st century, I continue to listen to music, and I can probably quote uh, some Radiohead or Muse, because some of the art, and that's another thing with artists that I work with, they're also turning me on to music. And I returned to a lot of Afropop because I was working with a lot of South African artists back in the late 90s all the way to now. And
Nice.
it does, and but I feel like it's a map where I'm listening to, like, Chicago. I'll be listening when I discovered your music and your singing. It hit home. I knew how well you prepared every all your projects, and I think homework is the key
Yeah.
to what we do.
When I first started learning other people's songs to perform live, I always went in with the philosophy that this song is somebody's favorite song.
Sweet.
And you want to make sure that you honor the artist and the listener with making sure that the lyrics are correct and the notes are correct, and that you sing it with heart, because that song means something to somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
How did you, I mean, you have your family teaching you, but how did you know that you were dedicated to doing it? How did you know, as a kid or teenager? When did you make that decision to go, yeah, I'm going to study. I'm going to be like Judy Garland or Liza
I
Minnelli and just
I
do my
I
own
think
thing.
it was, growing up in the musical home, both of my parents played instruments and sang, so it was just a part of growing up. And my mom encouraged me by signing me up for private lessons, and in school you learn.
Sweet.
Um, so I think it was just a part of everyday life. And then, um, when you have teachers who believe in you, or other people who see something in you, I think other people saw it in me before I did. I remember someone turning around and saying, "Oh, you have a nice voice." And I remember thinking, "Oh, I do? Oh, okay."
Right, right.
I was just enjoying it. So I think it was the enjoyment of music, as opposed to, learning it for some end purpose.
Ah, the journey.
The journey.
These are lessons in our journey. Whenever I send notes out to you or other folks that I'm interviewing, I'll write what lessons exist in your journey and passions, and how can they help people that feel excluded or bullied. And a lot of it is self-building, and it is your journey, and it's loving your walk. It seems like that.
Yeah, and I don't, some people will say, "Oh, where do you get the confidence from?" And I don't feel like I'm confident at all. As an artist, we're always pick and women, I think we pick on ourselves pretty well. Not enough this, too much that. But I do believe in hard work and I do believe in making the most of an opportunity. And so I
Yes,
I would hang my hat on that any day over feeling like, you know, I personally have some great confidence in myself. I know that if I practice and I get the work right, then I'll be fine.
that's absolutely true. I totally agree. And you can pat yourself on the back while you're doing it. You when you wake up from, oh my God, this work has been amazing and liberating, and look look what we or I did with just a couple of ideas, and what my client or the audience wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to go live on, I believe, the 15th.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It may be the 22nd, so I'll let you know. I will send an email. I'm really thrilled that you reached out for this, and it felt good to explore your gifts, and thank you for this.
Well, you've been a joy, and it's so nice to have somebody who really checks things out and has such good questions and does the
Oh,
background work and puts a context to things. It's really lovely.
I'm grateful. Thank you, and you have a blessed week. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Hang in there.